Jagat Prasad Nanda, Union Minister for Health and Family Welfare, respected Dr. Poonam Ketrapal Singh, Mr. Bob McMullen, Dr. G.N. Rao, Mrs. Rao, and visionaries present amongst the audience. I think today is a great day for all of us, for mankind itself, that the GPR ICARE is completing 2 decades of selfless service. I think 2 decades is a very small period in its existence, and this is an ICARE which I would like to say in the thing is Shatamanam Bhavati Shataya Purusha Satendriya Ayushya Vendriya Pratidishtati. This is how we praise for human beings, but for this institute I am talking of Shatamanam Bhavati, which means you should go on for centuries together with great strength. Ladies and gentlemen, Sarva Indriyanam Nayanam Pradhanam. Eyesight is the most important thing for a human being, because unless you have the eyesight, you can hardly see what is happening around you. And unless we see what is happening around us, I think the enjoyment becomes less. So it is in that direction that the GPR ICARE and the LVPI today are doing a tremendous job. Saint Tyagaraja sang before the Lord, Tera Tyagaraja. I think people today, in at least these 3 states and many more states to come, are singing the song Tera Tyagaraja in a different format before the LVPI, for which I think I will congratulate the LVPI and its very dedicated staff. Ladies and gentlemen, at least I have had the privilege of knowing this wonderful set of professionals or human beings over the last 8 years, and I must say it is amazing the touch of kindness, the touch of humanity that these people display is something which I hope that our medical fraternity all over will imbibe. In fact, in every forum I have been saying this, that this is the type of feelings that a doctor needs to have towards his patient. Because, as I always said, for a doctor, a patient is one among the 100 that he sees every day. But for a patient, you are the only one. Please remember this, and this is something which I find the LVPI has got in toto, and I admire them for that wonderful quality that they have. Thanks to the GPR ICARE today, I would like to say the ICARE, alphabet ICARE, is become ICARE. ICARE, which means I care for EYE care. That is what this whole concept has become. And this today has got so well implanted into the minds of people that I think this is the biggest service that you have really done for humanity, sir. Main thing about healthcare is accessibility, affordability, and dependability. And I think in the GPR ICARE as also the LVPI, these 3 factors are present in abundance. And that is what gives everybody a comfort. Ultimately, what we require is a comfort level. And the comfort level comes with these factors coming in there, namely accessibility, affordability, and dependability. Because particularly in the rural areas, I think this is very, very much necessary. Doctor, I would like to just put in a few layman's views, as usual, because I am not a professional. You all know me very well over the last few years. I think educating people on eye care is probably the most important and critical factor today. Unfortunately, while you are, of course, you are concentrating on the rural sector, which I say is a must today, given our rural segment, I think the amount of ignorance in the urban sector is also pretty high. So education overall, both in the rural populace and the urban population, I think is a must today, particularly for eye care. And you can sometimes tell them very simple things, which probably will help us many a time. Like people who are playing with the computer all the time, or electronic signal, where they can blink once in a way. How do you get over a tired eye at the end of the day? Probably a splash of water. And particularly in the rural areas, dietary requirements. I think dietary requirements play a major role in eye care, particularly vitamin A. And I think the availability of tomatoes in the rural areas, I think it's a very simple solution. Why can't we encourage them to consume more of tomatoes rather than throw it onto the roads, saying that we are not getting the proper price? Because I think at least they can safeguard their health in terms of vitamin A by doing such a simple thing. I mean, I'm talking very layman's language. I think diet, it becomes a very big important thing. And the second thing is a routine checkup. And the problem is many of us are scared of going for a healthcare checkup. Because the moment you go to the healthcare, the various things are prohibited for you in life. I mean, immediately you say you can't have sugar, you can't have sweet, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do it, etc., etc., etc. But at least luckily for us in the terms of eye care, we don't have such prohibitions. So I think we should encourage more people to go in for a routine eye care. Because what happens is that if you are not able to do it in the initial stages, much of the damage is done. And when we come here, it is almost at a very, very late stage. So that is where I think the education of routine eye checkup is a mandatory thing which should be made almost like a fundamental right. And the right to sight, I think, is almost becomes like a fundamental right today to people of India. I think this should be incorporated almost like a fundamental right. And the other system of converting your pyramid system that you have, where a lot of things we are able to get at the primary health center level itself, that I think is a wonderful idea. And I think more volunteers need to be trained in rural areas because they can do the preliminary screening at least. I mean, because you may not be able to have a center. And I must say, I must confess before this August audience, that on one occasion years back when I visited Araku, and many people there were complaining, sir, we don't have anything to check our eyes and we have to go all the way to Vizag, etc. I came back promptly and told Dr. G. Doctor, why don't you open up a small center in Araku, which is one of the far places. And imagine, within a fortnight, I got back a reply, got a response from Dr. G. saying, sir, I'd like to tell you that we have opened a center in Araku. This is the type of response I expect from the medical profession. I mean, I know that I'm one of those who's had a very rash view of healthcare. All of you are aware of it. And I'm saying this because if we are able to have this sort of healthcare, I don't see any reason why people will not have good health. And I think we need to propagate the fact that health is wealth. Wealth is not health. You may have all the wealth in the world, but if you do not have health, I think the wealth is a waste. So that is where I think we need to be very careful. And one more thing was, I was wondering that now that we're going into rural areas, whether we should integrate your GPR ICARE with institutional deliveries, because now we have institutional deliveries going on in a very big way. And many of these things probably will have to be checked out at the very birth of a baby itself. Even at that stage, I think we need to go in for checkup. Because the other day I was given this great knowledge that glaucoma can be there even in a newborn. If that is going to be the stage, why do we allow the child to grow with various eye deficiencies? Why don't you do this at the very birth of the child? I think this sort of an integration between the GPI, eye care, and probably many of the PHCs, the government PHCs, where you could do this screening, even for newborns, I think will be a very useful experiment if we could do that. The other thing that I would like to also request you doctors is that in the case of genetic disorders, particularly in the eye frame, and if you think that this is going to be hereditary, I think we need to advise parents or would-be mothers about this problem. I think no mother is going to like to have a child with an eye disability. I think that is why I'm saying this integration between the PHCs and the hospitals where you're having this, I think will have to be done. Eye, ladies and gentlemen, is the most sensitive and functionally dominant sense. Sarva Tantra Samatatva, that is universal acceptance. Sarva Loka Adhara Bhuta, universally proved, is what an eye is, and that is the characteristic of an eye. I really wish the LVP grows from strength to strength. I wish you well, sir, and would congratulate you on this wonderful 2 decades of great service to humanity at large. This is what I think is what is getting you the blessings of people, and that is why I think you are going from strength to strength. May God bless you. Thank you very much.